Want to hear the most annoying sound of the world? Hey.
Ohio Senator and Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance spoke out against the latest indictment against his running mate. Vance took aim at special counsel Smith and referred to the indictment as an election interference effort.
But it looks like Jack Smith doing more what he does, which is filing these absurd lawsuits in an effort to influence the election. I mean, the one thing that I did see, which I felt was just classic lipstick on a pig, is, you know, of course, the reason the Supreme Court threw out his lawsuit is because they said it implicated the president's official acts, of course, which the president has immunity in conducting those official acts.
Trump's legal team says they prepared for this new indictment, saying it still has flaws under the Supreme Court's reasoning.
Security, and Kamala Harris is not interested in doing it.
Senator, do you support authorizing the use of deadly force for migrants crossing the border illegally? And in what circumstances? For instance, DeSantis supported it if people were carrying drugs across the border or cutting through the border wall. What is your take on that?
Well, you're talking about authorizing deadly force for everybody? Well, of course not, right? But I mean, look, obviously, if you have a violent criminal, if you have a person who's carrying a firearm, if you have somebody who's bringing in loads of fentanyl, you have to do everything that you can to prevent them from coming into our country. Obviously, you know, we have parameters around the use of deadly force in law enforcement. I don't think that we need to change those. What we need to change is Kamala Harris's failed leadership that doesn't let these guys do their job. I mean, it's tough to overstate, and this is one of the reasons why I really wish Kamala Harris should come to the southern border and talk to these guys. Is there is a real sense, not just of frustration, but of heartache. These guys are doing this job because they love this country and they want to protect it. They have a vice president who's telling them, you're not allowed to do their job. We have got to fix that. And I think, frankly, if she looked these guys in the eyes and understood how dedicated they are to doing their jobs, she might actually let them. So I'd encourage her to come here before the election.
Speak with the youth. Hey. Want to hear the most annoying sound of the world? Hey.
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
Full house. You ain't getting no airtime. You need me to play that back for you.
Yes, sir. Run it back real quick.
All right, we're gonna run it back. Double up on for the chat as well. Hold on for a second. Bang. Let's go.
Sunday morning with the Democrats' rebranding of Kamala Harris with just 100 days until Election Day. After nearly 4 years of policy failures from the Biden-Harris administration at the border, tax and spending leading to inflation, the media is now relaying the Democrat talking points that say Kamala was never in charge of the border after all. And no, she had no role in any economic policy. Well, in fact, the vice president was the deciding vote and the tiebreaker 33 times for Democrat policies, including the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act, which totaled $2.5 trillion and sparked the inflation, part of the $7 trillion in spending, which at least in part led to sky-high inflation, currently up 20% on her watch. Despite not receiving a single vote in the year's Democrat primaries and dropping out of the 2020 Democrat race before they actually held their first primary, Harris now has enough support from delegates to become the party's nominee, according to the Associated Press. So let's go back to policy decisions and proclamations from the vice president during her term.
I think there's no question that we've got to critically re-examine ICE and its role and the way that it is being administered and the work it is doing, and we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
I am running to declare, once and for all, that health care is a fundamental right. And we will deliver that right with Medicare for all.
We're not going to treat people who are undocumented across the border as criminals. That's correct. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
We have confused the idea that to achieve safety, you put more cops on the street. Instead of understanding to achieve safe and healthy communities, you put more resources into the public education system of those communities, into affordable housing, into home ownership.
Well, that was then. Now it's a presidential race on the line. Harris is trying to disassociate herself from the impact of the Biden-Harris policies, including inflation up 20%, real wages down almost 2%, and the U.S. national debt approaching $35 trillion. And, of course, the border crisis that she was put in charge to oversee has resulted in more than 10 million migrants illegally entering the country, with nearly 2 million people that we know of who have evaded apprehension and have completely disappeared into the country, as well as China ramping up aggression against the United States here at home and abroad. Joining me now.
Yo, just like I said to Saul when we did it the first time, my girl Maria, how she bodied this girl's entire career in 2 minutes. That's crazy. What you got for me, French?
Yeah. One thing I will say, man, I want to make sure I do my pleasantries first. So salute to all the brothers on the panel. Salute to all the brothers in the chat, man. I appreciate y'all having me here, and I appreciate the brothers in the chat listening. Okay, so about this immigration deal, right? And I was kind of taking some notes as I was listening to that about the immigration deal. One of the reasons why you saw that influx of immigrants into Chicago and some of the crime that they've kind of brought along with them is one of the things that the governor down here, Governor Greg Abbott, did down here in Texas is when they kept putting out these policies that basically enticed immigrants to cross the border. He started busting them up north. He was like, okay, if y'all want to set up the type of environment for immigrants to continue to come here, we're gonna start sending them to your cities to make sure you do something about it. So they started. I think he sent 119,000 immigrants between Washington D.C., Chicago, and New York were the three places that I think he sent them to, so they could feel the pain that we're kind of experiencing down here in the South. The other thing, I want to set up the type of environment for immigrants to continue to come here. We're gonna start sending them to your cities to make sure you do something about it. So they started. I think he sent 119,000 immigrants between Washington D.C., Chicago, and New York were the three places that I think he sent them to, so they could feel the pain that we're kind of experiencing down here in the South. The other thing, when she was talking about DACA, the reason why she wants to make those changes to DACA is because they are pretty much seeing that Black people, Black men, I would say specifically, are kind of leading the charge as far as independent thinking as it relates to our culture. And you do have some women that are beginning to follow along. So the writing is on the wall to say, how much longer are we going to have this Black American FBA ADOS voter base, since LBJs will have these ninjas voting Democrat for the next 50 years. It seems like that them days are kind of coming to an end. So they're looking for the next voter base. If they can, and even though traditionally you'll have, like your Latin immigrants are leaning a little bit more conservative, I think what they're going for is that younger generation who will get indoctrinated in the education system, get indoctrinated in the institutions of higher learning, so that they will vote Democrat and teach their children to vote Democrat by way of, like I said, by way of their indoctrination and education part. The other thing I would say about that DACA deal is what makes our counterparts so goddamn stupid is that they're pretty much signing up for their own demise, all because they want to force this Indian woman to be a Black woman. You know what I mean? So what's happening is all she has to do was do the two-step with some pearls and chucks. They fell for it. This go around, she's talking about washing greens in the tub. It's just real bottom feeder information in order to get them to the polls. And then of course they brought out the Boulay class, Roland Martin, and all of these other simps and panderers to try and push her on across the finish line. As it relates to fracking, one of the things we have down here in Texas is, and it's a very blue collar type of thing. You got brothers out there, you got essays out there, you got white guys out there, and these are people who are normally a little bit lower on the socioeconomic side of things, but they have an opportunity to get over six figures by working in those oil fields. So if you stop fracking, if you stop these guys from drilling, we have what's called oil field trash out here, and it's a play on brothers who really didn't go to college, or guys in general who didn't go to college, and they had an opportunity to go out into the oil field, work these long hours, sleep inside of these little bitty kind of like convict trailer type deals, and all they do is work for the oil fields, and they may work 6 months, 8 months out of the year, and these guys bring in $100,000, $120,000, $150,000 a year. They get these lifted trucks that'll come out of the oil field. They all dirty, and on the back of them it says oil field trash. It's an inside joke down here. The other thing I would get to is they talk about the affordable housing. Well, if you drop the damn interest rates, housing will be affordable. And also, if you get on top of a lot of these lobbyists that are preventing and influence and a lot of the zoning laws, that are preventing people from putting up multi-units, and not only that, preventing them from building additional structures onto their properties when they have room. If you stop interfering with that, housing can be a little bit more affordable. But I'll land my plane there.
Okay, look at you come.
My nigga. My nigga.
The chat tends to agree with you as well. They say you making great points. Hoop, I got something for you because somebody in the chat wants you to address something when it's your turn. But Tito, what you got for me on Maria Bartiromo bodying Kamala's entire political record as vice president and even as senator?
Speaking as an ex-con, I think it's something that Ms. Bartiromo forgot, and that's the numerous Brady violations that are attributed to Kamala Harris while she was just a prosecutor. Now, for those of you that might not know what a Brady violation is, that's when either a prosecutor or an investigator, whether it's a uniformed police, an investigator for the court, or a detective, has evidence that could be potentially exculpatory to you and ignores it or tries to bury, or even the officer of the court. Like if somebody wants to come in and testify on your behalf, and like the clerk ignores their request or whatever, they trying to get up with whoever the prosecutor is or whoever your defense attorney is, or if you got a public defender and they call the clerk's office, all of that comprises a Brady violation. And she had a whole bunch of Brady violations against mostly who, black men. Another thing that Ms. Bartiromo missed is that when y'all look at all of them Vice news stories about police gangs running rampant in California, or y'all see like these like cheap low budget movies on Tubi or whatever about it, that was under Kamala Harris's watch. And that's what I'm surprised a lot of people aren't talking about.
We are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe.
Oh, damn.